In the first video, I talked about how relationships usually aren't damaged by one loud, dramatic moment. Most of the time, the damage happens quietly, it happens over time. Relationships can be affected by exposure, environment, and proximity. In the second video, I talked about how not all support is actually safe, how sometimes the people who sound the most supportive are actually introducing confusion. They're introducing doubt or they're introducing instability. And they do this even if that was never their intention. This video connects those two ideas because one of the hardest lessons for me to understand was realizing that doubt can enter a relationship even when you never invited it in, you never agreed with it, and you never wanted it. Whether you never believe it or want it, doubt can definitely enter in because doubt doesn't need permission. And if you ever looked back on a season of your relationship and thought, how did we even get here? Or why did things feel off, even though nothing big happened? This may help explain that. See, for a long time, I thought that doubt would show up in very obvious ways. I assumed it would feel like a decision that I was making, or a realization that came to me, or some kind of clear turning point where I suddenly knew something had changed. I thought it would be obvious. I thought it would feel like something was happening. I thought doubt would come in loud, dramatic, or unmistakable, but that's not how it happened for me. Doubt didn't show up as a statement. It didn't show up as me saying, I don't trust this relationship anymore, or I want out. Instead, it showed up as questions, a lot of questions. Some of them were quiet, some of them were loud, some were subtle, and some of them were invasive. Questions like, is this normal? Should this be this hard? Why does this feel so heavy? Am I overreacting? Am I missing something? What are they seeing that I'm not? And am I crazy for feeling like this? And here's the part that matters. At the time, those questions didn't feel dangerous. They felt reasonable. They even felt thoughtful. They felt mature. They felt like I was doing the work. Looking back, all of my alarms should have been going off, but they weren't because nothing about those questions felt reckless or destructive. They felt like curiosity. They felt like self reflection. And that's why doubt is so effective. Something I didn't understand back then is that statements are much easier to reject than questions. If someone tells you directly what to do, you can disagree. If someone gives you advice that feels wrong, you can dismiss it. If someone pushes a conclusion you don't agree with, you can say no. But questions don't ask for agreement. They just sit there, they linger, and they echo. They stay with you longer than the conversation itself. Questions don't require you to accept them, they just invite you to consider them. And when similar questions keep coming up over and over again from different people in different conversations, sometimes in different tones, they start to feel relevant. I want to pause here for just a moment because everything I'm talking about in this video is something I've had to sit with slowly, not emotionally, not all at once, and not under pressure. That's why I created Guard Your Proximity. The full paid version is a comprehensive reflection workbook. It's for women who already sense that something feels off, not necessarily in their relationship, but in the environment around them. The voices they're hearing, the conversations they're having, and the way certain interactions linger long after they're over. The paid guide goes deeper. It includes structured reflection prompts to help you notice Who has repeated access to your thoughts during vulnerable moments? How certain conversations affect your emotional safety, and whether the environments you're in are stabilizing you or quietly introducing doubt. It's not about fixing your relationship. It's not about confronting anyone. It's not about being told what to do. It's about protecting your inner space while clarity is still forming. And if you're not ready for something that in depth, or you just want a starting point, there's also a free version linked below. The free guide is shorter and more introductory. It helps you understand what guarding proximity actually means. You can begin by noticing which voices linger in your thinking and reflect how certain spaces make you feel calmer or more unsettled. There's no advice in either version, just structured reflection. Both are linked in the description. Start where you are, move at your pace. If this conversation about influence and environment is resonated, I've linked my Guard Your Proximity reflection guides below. They start to feel not true, just relevant. And once something feels relevant, it starts influencing how you interpret your own experiences. Not because you made a conscious choice, but because uncertainty has been introduced. This is where environment matters more than we realize. When you spend time in spaces where certain narratives are normalized, even subtle, your nervous system starts adjusting before your mind does. You might not believe the narrative. You might not agree with it. You might even actively reject it, but repeated exposure still matters. Over time, you may notice yourself hesitating more before you speak. You may feel less confident in moments where you used to feel grounded. You may second guess things that never required second guessing before. Your tone might change, your reactions might change, your emotional safety might change, and none of it feels intentional. That's what makes it so hard to see while it's happening. Doubt usually doesn't attack the relationship head on. It affects emotional safety first. You become more cautious, more guarded, more careful with your words. Not because your partner suddenly became unsafe, but because your internal sense of stability shifted. That distinction matters. Sometimes the relationship didn't change, it's the environment that did. And when the environment changes, your nervous system adapts before your mind does. If you don't realize what's happening, it's very easy to assume the discomfort is coming from the relationship itself. Now, I want to be very clear here. Advice itself is not the problem. Some advice, when it comes from the right person and sometimes at the right time, can be incredibly helpful. Wise counsel does exist and it can be a gift. The problem is advice coming from the wrong person masked as good advice. Advice that doesn't ask questions, advice that assumes conclusions, advice that speaks with certainty instead of responsibility. And when advice like that enters your life, it doesn't feel dangerous. Instead, it feels supportive. It feels validating. It feels comforting, especially when you're already vulnerable. And that's what makes it so hard to detect. Doubt doesn't become powerful because it's convincing. It becomes powerful because it's familiar. When you hear the same concerns repeated over and over again, even passively, they begin shaping how you see things. Not because you decided to believe them, but because your nervous system recognizes them. And familiarity creates influence, even when you disagree. One of the most important realizations for me was understanding that I didn't have to accept partial truth. Once I slowed down and grounded myself by talking with my spouse and reflecting honestly, ultimately also praying a lot, the holes in the story became easier for me to identify. And once I saw the holes, I realized something important. I didn't have to fix the narrative. I didn't have to argue with it. And I didn't have to explain myself. I could reject the entire framing quietly because not every disagreement needs to be verbal and not every decision needs to be justified. This is where guarding proximity finally made sense to me. Not as cutting people off, not as isolating yourself, not as living in an echo chamber, but as being honest about influence. Repeated access creates influence, whether you agree with it or not. Guarding proximity is about clarity during vulnerable seasons. It's about noticing what certain environments produce in you. If a space consistently leaves you more confused, more doubtful, or more disconnected, that's information. And it's information worth paying attention to. If you've been feeling unsettled in your relationship and can't point to one clear reason why, this may be part of it. Sometimes the relationship isn't the problem. Sometimes it's the room you've been sitting in. Guarding proximity isn't about rejecting people. It's about protecting clarity. And clarity doesn't rush you, it steadies you. In the next video, I'm going to talk about a question that helped me gain even more clarity. Who benefits from my doubt? Because once you can answer that honestly, it changes how you listen, who you listen to, and how much access you give moving forward. Thank you so much for watching and spending time with me today. If this video resonated with you in any way, I'd really appreciate you taking a moment to like and subscribe. Sharing this video helps it reach someone else who may need it, and that support truly makes a difference. If you'd like to keep coming back, make sure to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful you chose to spend part of your day with this content. Take care of yourself, move at your own pace, and I'll see you next time.